What if you'd given away someone else's deepest secret without even knowing it? I'm Dre, and this is The Midnight Hour. Tonight we will be looking at Daphne du Maurier's Don't Look Now collection. And before we get into this story, I'd like to thank New York Review Books for generously providing this beautiful copy of the collection itself. Now, tonight's story is called Indiscretion. And for as short of a story as Indiscretion is, a lot happens in it, so we're going to jump right into the plot right now. It basically follows a man who is working at a new job in London and whose boss invites him out to lunch one day. It's around Christmas time, so there's a jolly spirit going around and everybody's kind of in a good mood. While at this lunch, the boss lets our main narrator know that the boss is getting married soon and he's got this new fiance. He's over the moon and he has finally found romance. He says that specific word, romance. And this makes our man basically reminisce on the last time he's heard that word spoken aloud to him. And he goes into this story that he would not have otherwise told if he had not heard that word. But basically the story goes like this. The man was feeling very disenfranchised one evening. Didn't really know what he wanted to do, so he goes to see a movie at the cinema. He goes and sees this romantic comedy type movie and he sits through it twice because it's so over the top and so cheesy that he really wants to soak it all in. Anyway, after the two showings, he goes back out into the street where it starts to rain. It starts pouring and he couldn't be more miserable. He sees all of these couples getting into taxi cabs, going off on their own way. So he starts walking down the street by his lonesome self. All of a sudden, he bumps into a woman who is visibly very distraught. She has pulled her rim down of her hat and is crying profusely. And the man just is so shocked and says, "I'm so sorry. Is everything okay? Can I help you?" She says, "No, everything is fine. I'm just a bit lost." So he actually invites her out to get a meal, get a hot meal in her, see what the situation is. While they are both eating at this restaurant, she informs him of her situation and her backstory, which is that she comes from a small town and she has come to London to meet this man who she's already met and has already courted her and now wants to ask her hand in marriage. And while in London, he kind of takes off on her. He leaves her in the dust without a single cent to her name. So now she's stuck in this big city, can't get home. So our man, our narrator, invites her to stay over his place that night and says, "I will give you money in the morning. Make sure to see you off back home." While that's very generous and very kind of our main narrator, she says, "I can't do that. I don't really know you." And he's so over the top nice and generous that he says, "Don't worry, everything will be just fine." So she agrees to go back home with him. Now, while they're back at his place, the fire's going, she's got her hands warming by it, and she looks back over to him and says, "If I weren't in such a sad situation, this would kind of be like a romance, wouldn't it?" And I guess our man just nods his head. And that's the last time he's heard that word romance. So wouldn't you know it, that the next morning he wakes up and not only is she gone, but so is his wallet, so is all the money in the house, and that is how his story ends. Back to the lunch with the boss. The boss sits back in his seat while listening to this entire story, is just so caught off guard and is just feeling so sad for our main narrator, but he reassures him. He says, "You know what? Not all women are like that. Not all women are the same. Okay? Let me have you meet my fiance. She's the type of person who will blow all your expectations away. She will reinstate your faith in humanity. So they basically leave lunch. The man meets up with his boss later at a train station. He finds him in the train by the window and waves to him, says, okay, I'm here to meet your fiance. The boss is so elated. He's like, here she is. And the man just automatically says, Merry Christmas to her. It's the exact same woman who conned our main man earlier in the story. Now, she basically says, I've seen your face before. I've seen your face before. Didn't we bump into each other on Wardour Street? And that's basically how the story ends. Now, why that story is so good and so rich is because of the 3 sections we're going to read right now. And they will really show us why everything happens for a very specific reason in this story. The first section is the boss and the man speaking at lunch over romance, over that word, and over the bitterness that our main narrator feels. And it says, "You're a cynic," he said. "You've no illusions. You see all women in the same pattern. I'm twice your age and look at me, the happiest man alive." "Perhaps I've been unlucky," I said. "Maybe I've struck the wrong type." "Ah," he said, "a bad picker. That's fatal. I flatter myself," he opened his mouth to admit a forkload of food, "that I have chosen well. You young men are so bitter about life," he went on. "No romance." Romance. The word conjured a vision in my mind of a dark night with the rain falling and a small face turned to me, weeping, her hat pulled over her eyes. The last taxi driving away from the Empire Cinema. Men and women in evening dress, hurrying, bent under umbrellas. Romance, I said. That's funny. Funnier still, the way I caught hold of one word. It would have been so easy to let it go. I thought for a moment, turning it over in my head. The last time I heard that word, I said, was from the lips of a girl. I'm not likely to forget it in a hurry. Okay, so we have 2 things to comment on right here. The first one is the boss's pure certainty of romance itself. He is so sure that he has found his romantic mate and his piece of the puzzle in this romantic mystery that we all have to solve, that he's now imparting his wisdom and his energy upon our main narrator. He's just so sure of himself. He's elated. He's on cloud 9. But I love how the man focuses on one word. That's the second issue that we were going to speak on. He could have focused on any other thing in that conversation, but that one word, romance, really perked his ears up. And that's what led him into telling the story that he tells his boss and what leads to the inevitable conclusion. Now, the second section that we're going to read is pretty short. And it is right after the man reveals the whole story to the boss. And it says, "For a few minutes we sat in silence. He looked thoughtful. He stroked his chin. 'You were a damn fool, and that's all there is to it,' he said. 'Ever go back to Wardour Street?' 'No,' I answered. 'Never before and never again. My only visit.' 'Extraordinary how you were so easily mistaken,' he said. 'I can spot that type of girl a mile off. Of course, it's the sort of thing to make you steer clear of women, I agree. But they're not all like that, my dear fellow. Not all,' he smiled. That right there is the key. He hasn't been to Wardour Street not until that moment and not since that moment. That was his only visit there. And what I love is that the boss, again, is so sure of himself. He's so sure. Not all women are like that, and not all women are, of course. But in this specific situation, and where the reader doesn't know yet where the story is going, the reader wants to believe the boss. Not all women are like that. But little does the reader know, little do we know where this story is actually headed. And for the third section, it is actually the last few paragraphs of the story, and it goes, "He pulled the girl forward, laughing self-consciously, scarlet with pride and satisfaction. Here's the bride," he said. "I want you two to be great friends. Show yourself, my darling." I stood motionless with my hat in my hand. "A happy Christmas to you," I said. She leaned from the window, staring at me. Her husband gazed at us both with a quick, puzzled frown. "I say, have you two met before?" he said. Then she laughed affectionately, and putting her arms round his neck, she flung into the air her silly little gesture of bravado, mistress of the situation, but speaking without forethought, reckless, a shade too soon. The guard waved his little green flag. "But, of course, I know your face," she said. "Didn't we run up against each other once in Wardour Street?" End of story. End of story and end of relationship, basically, right? The woman's callousness and her huge ego gave herself away right there. She was even more sure of herself than the boss has been through the whole story. She wanted to rub in our narrator's face, what I did to you, I'm about to do to this man that I'm sitting next to right now 100 times over. But she doesn't realize, she doesn't have that forethought. She speaks a shade too soon, remember, and doesn't think her words through, that maybe, just maybe, her story was spoken to this boss just a few hours prior. And because the boss asked him, "Have you been to Wardour Street since?" the man says no. That's pure payback and then some, because while it doesn't go into it, it's obvious that that train ride is not going to be a nice one for this woman or the boss. But I guess the boss is going to have a better Christmas than she will, because she has just been found out. Her days of conning are over. So basically, this story, once I read it, it was too good not to share. It was one of those stories where you don't really see the end coming. You know, the boss keeps talking about how great his own fiance is, and that the man should get out of his little shell and get out there, find someone like his fiance, his fiance, his fiance. And it just so happens that the fiance is not one to be trusted at all. So that was tonight's story. Like this video if you felt something, comment with what you thought, and I will see you next Sunday at the midnight hour.